Hey, welcome back to Frank's Model Works. I'm Frank. We are at episode 8, the body finishing tutorial. In this episode, we're going to be doing compounding, polishing. I'm going to show you my materials, show you how I do it. There will be links in the description to everything that I use in this episode and in the previous episode, which, if all goes according to plan, came out yesterday. This was all supposed to be episode 7, but it was a lot of information and I couldn't cut it down and get it under a half hour without it making absolutely no sense whatsoever. So I cut it into 2 episodes, and hopefully you'll watch. Alright, well, here we go. So after the 10,000 grit, I have a couple of... There's a haze and light scratch marks. Not really scratches, but indications that there were. That sandpaper was used. So in order to get rid of that, now I start using the ScratchX. Now, as far as there's no set method and materials. Like, you could use a micro mesh set. It's whatever works for you. The materials that I use work for me. My bodies are they're okay. They're not horrible. They're not the best in the world, but they're not horrible. And these 2 particular products from Meguiars, the polishing compound and the ScratchX, I learned from Don Yost. But he also used a product called Novice. It's a plastic polish. I don't use that anymore. I find it to be a little bit too abrasive. But maybe if you want, you could check it out. It's this stuff. The only caveat that I would give you as far as Novice is their number 3 is coarse. It's very, very coarse. You could introduce scratches, so I would avoid using that. And the Novice 1 has silicone in it, so if you apply Novice 1 to anything that's painted, don't paint anything on top of it ever again, because the silicone will cause fish eyes in any type of paint that you use afterwards. Micro mesh, they sell a set of square pads in numerous grits. Yeah, they work, sure. Right now, I'm gonna move up to the ScratchX, and we'll keep an eye on everything. You just gotta be careful at your edges, in here, around lines like this, and on peaks, that you're not burning through, because it's late in the game. It's a late stage in the game to be fixing that, you know what I mean? So you got to be really careful. So give the ScratchX a shake. I bought this, 4 or 5 years ago. I might have used a quarter of this bottle, and that's on every model car that I've built since 2020, so probably 30 or 40 cars. That's a lot of material right there. But put a little dab on. Wipe that off, work that in. You don't have to really cake this stuff on. Just apply a large enough coat of it. Multiple applications is better than glooping it on and then spraying it. Believe it or not, if you're going to use that little rotary tool, I would recommend wearing a dust mask, because the fume, not that there's fumes, but the particulate that gets into the air from that rotary tool moving this stuff around, it's not good for you. All this stuff, not worth it. I mean, we're not doing big volumes here, but why take the risk with your health? All right, I'm gonna shut up. And this thing I put on the second speed, and then I go and I polish. Okay, so if you see that, we're starting to get a shine. It's not really showing up very well on the camera, but in person it's pretty nice. So inside of here, I got a little bit of buildup. So just get that out. If I can't get that out with the polishing cloth, I got the micro brushes. This I would provide a link for from Amazon. I buy them in bulk in sets of 400, but a lot of times this size, the ultra fine, is out of stock. It's hard to find. So I'll see if there's a link. I almost dropped it. Great. So that's starting to come up pretty nicely. The blemish that was there is barely visible. I think it might disappear when I move to compound. Now it's not that, like, right now I'm gonna move to compound, but that doesn't mean that, like, I could technically introduce scratches into this with the compound, and then if that's the case, chances are they're not going to be very deep, but I could just go back to ScratchX and get them out, get any swirls or anything. With this thing, you got to be real careful, because it can slip. It absolutely can slip. It can also, if you're not careful, this knurled piece right here can sometimes grab an edge. Ask me how I know. It happens a lot inside the wheel openings. So what you're looking at is not the creation of a best paint at a model car contest. It's by no means. This is an entry into immediacy of model car finishes. This is just the entry into it, because that's basically the limit of my abilities. Is I am a somewhat intermediate builder with a fantastic personality and a tremendous ability for delivery. Yeah. So now I'm gonna move on to the Meguiars. So hold on. Just want to make sure I get it off of the applicator. Not that mixing these two is a problem, it's just find it easier to just dip the applicator into this. This orifice right here is probably so clogged I wouldn't be able to get anything out of there anyway. So that's after the compound. I think I'm going to do one more around the ScratchX, and kind of pleased with the hood. So let's do that. So you may have noticed that I didn't go anywhere near this peak during the polishing process, and that's just because the reward is not worth the risk. I don't think there would be much difference in the finish if I polished it, and the likelihood of me burning through on this peak or even up against the peak is so great that it's just not worth it. It really isn't. So that's why I didn't even go near it. So there's our hood. I think it looks okay. Hate to steal a line from Derek at Vice Grip Garage, but good enough for the girls we go with. I think it's a deep enough shine to represent a factory paint job. It's not. It doesn't look candy coated, you know, but there's still the tiniest remnants, but I really think if I really go after this little imperfection right there, I'm gonna burn through. And for something like that I'm probably just being fastidious and hyper fixated on it. I think I'm good enough with this. Now what I do with this now is I go and I hide this someplace. I'll know where it is, but I just hide it from damage. I'm not going to leave it on the desk. So hold on a second, and we're going to start on the body. Hold on. Okay, we're left with the haze of the 10,000 grit. So now, as before with the hood, we're going to apply ScratchX, and we're moving from wet sanding to polishing. You see it, don't you? I know I do. It's not super noticeable, like unless you're looking for it. Still, it's going to annoy me for the rest of my life. That's why I say, if you're like me, you have my condolences. Don't be like me. There's no way to go through life. Alright. I will bring you back. I'm going to pause here because the battery on my camera is starting to go. I will bring you back. I'm going to do ScratchX over the rest of the body, and then I'll bring you back to show you. I'll bring you back after I do the compound, okay? Hold on. It is the next day. After a couple of rounds back and forth between ScratchX and Meguiars 105 Ultra Cut Compound, I have a body that I am pretty happy with. Is it perfect? No. But I think it's about as good as I'm going to be able to get it. The only thing that's left to do now is to get the residue of the ScratchX and the compound out of the panel lines and out of any nooks and crannies and crevices. And you really want to be on the lookout for that kind of stuff, because it will get in the way when we do the wash later on. So this is a Tamiya HF number 0 that I bought. I never used it for anything but to cut down and use for this purpose. It works very well to get in there. Now you might have seen previously that I had like a toothbrush or a brush from a gun cleaning kit that I had. That could cause a little bit of scratching, so that's not really the application for this. Once the body's been polished and wet sanded and all that fun stuff. So you want to go as light a touch as possible. Get into all the areas where compound might have accumulated, and then brush it away. This is a Tamiya anti-static brush. It's good for dusting your models once they're already built. Doesn't work as much to dust off like before paint. Well, then again, we're talking about this basement. All bets are off in this basement. Good thing about this brush is that it's got this little hidden brush inside with stiffer bristles, and it can also be used to get into these panel lines to get your compound and whatever else. Get that out. Look in here, in this little corner right here. Likes to get jammed in there. Ew. There's like there's a little bit of paint buildup along here. Watch me destroy the entire model right now. Yeah, there's like paint buildup. I am going to, before I mess something up, I'm just going to try to fold that in and pretend it was never there. I'm going to ask all of you to do the same, because I can picture myself slipping and going right down that body. So we're just going to pretend that didn't happen. I showed you the 6 Porsche bodies. The one body that was really dark blue, I was carrying it and I dropped it, and then I stepped on it because I didn't see where it fell. So the dark blue one's not going to make it to the end. Oh well. It happens. So once we're reasonably certain that we got most of the gook out of there, we look over our body. And I am rather pleased with this result. It's not perfect. I wasn't able to fully resolve the little issue there or the little issue there. I was able to get out this little piece over here on this door. For the most part, I got rid of the little problem at this character line. There is a little blemish on the roof, but it's not super noticeable. But I'm feeling good about this one. So I also wanted to let you know that in the same vein that Tamiya has this anti-static brush, DSPIAE makes this one, which is cool because be nice. It's retractable, and then there's a smaller, more firmer bristle one over here. The only thing is you gotta be careful when you're first doing this thing. Not that you gotta be careful, you just gotta know. Don't leave it in that position because it'll retract. You gotta make sure it clicks. Hear that click? That click. This way it's locked into position, and it's the same thing with this. Like if you leave it at that position right there, it'll just make sure, like that. Nice little tool, like this company, DSPIAE. Find out what it means to me. DSPIAE. So that's that from them. We got the brush. If you just want to retire a paintbrush and cut the bristles off, just make sure you give it a nice thorough cleaning before you cut the bristles off. Get everything you can out, because you don't want to introduce residue onto your freshly painted, clear coated, and polished and wet sanded body. So I'm gonna put you on the podium. We're gonna sum up this episode. Hopefully this episode isn't gonna be as long, although I looked at the raw footage so far and it was at an hour and 40 minutes, but I think I can get that down by speeding up. This way you don't have to stare at me sanding. So hold on a second, I'll put you on the tripod. The last two episodes are probably some of the most important. Not in terms of results, but it's the payoff for all the hard work that came before this. Now you're looking at a body that's been wet sanded and polished, and it looks glossy, it looks good. So hopefully what you get out of this is a body that you're proud of, something that you look at and you're like, wow, I made that work. That's what the entire series is about. Getting you more enjoyment out of the hobby. So in episode 9, we're going to start looking at one of my least favorite things to do, and that's put bare metal foil on. Not that I don't like the product. It's a good product, and I love the people who make it dearly. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of the process. It's not the product, it's the situation. It is unfortunately one of the best ways to replicate the chrome trim on a 60s and 70s and 50s and 40s and whatever on a model car. So that's what we're going to deal with in the next episode. That's what we're going to tackle. But we're getting there. We're getting there little by little by little by little. So I hope you stick around. There's a lot more to come, but ultimately I want this to be a resource that you can watch and then go back to as your skills improve and see, all right, well, what did he say about this? So that's what I'm hoping for. As always, I got Frizzo's back. I appreciate your support. And until we speak again, my friends, take care of yourselves and be well.